So today I'm going to step over VS Code. I haven't stepped over since last time, so I'm not really sure if it's gonna work, but hopefully it will. And I haven't figured out the problem that I'm having with Godot yet, but I made some progress and I'm going to explain what I think is happening. So yeah, I'm going to step over VS Code to try to understand how they load the directory the first time that you are opening the editor. So I'm gonna wait to see if it's streaming, then I'm going to show. Because right now I have the game running, the debugger on VS Code running for the game or the application, and yeah. So I'm just gonna wait to see if it's streaming. Then I'm gonna show there. So initially I thought that it was a Stack Overflow on the thread that calls this function here. But now I think it's just what is happening is that because the directory is so big, it didn't stop the threads. So it's just taking a massive amount of time to load the directory. And because it's using a different thread than the main thread, the application runs, but this thread is under the hood, still working on getting all the files and folders from the directory. And I don't understand why, because I tested the same directory on VS Code. So obviously it must be because of either is a special file or folder path or something like that, or it's because the directory is just massive. But even then, like you would think that Godot would be much faster because it's written on C++, and VS Code is using Electron, which is using Node.js, which uses JavaScript. So I think that's, but like the difference could be that this one is creating a class for each subfolder, and VS Code doesn't. And I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but what I did was a test with a different path that had a lot less files, and then it just worked. So yeah. So what I did here outside as well, I put because I was thinking about like if it is, because it occurred to me that the directory is very massive, the documents, because there's like basically everything that I have on the computer right now is probably there, somewhere there, because it's part of the actually it doesn't matter that it's part of the C, but like most of the stuff I have a lot of code, a lot of libraries, stuff like that. So it's just taking a massive amount of time. So initially I thought that it was a Stack Overflow because of that, because there's so many directories. But I put this stuff that ChatGPT recommended. So the first thing that I thought about was to wrap this on a try-catch block. Because what I thought about is that since it's using a different thread, it might be the case that the thread that is calling this function hits the Stack Overflow, but for whatever reason, it doesn't show any warning or anything like that. But, and I think ChatGPT's response says that this can happen in some operational systems or something like this, but most of the time it's just gonna crash the program or it's gonna throw an exception. So this is the thing that I found weird. So then it just occurred to me, why not I just put a breakpoint here to see if it's still running? And that's exactly what is happening. So I assume that at some point you would continue the execution and then set the scanning to false. And because it never stops, it never completes this, it never sets the scanning to false at the end of the function there, which means that it is not going to render this stuff on the front end because it's not going to emit the signal. Because the signal is emitted on the process of the VM file system, and it depends on whether or not scanning is false. which only is set after this runs. So like the most obvious solution that I'm thinking about, like, but it wouldn't really be a solution, would be to just put an additional argument here with a count and just put like a return or something whenever it hits that depth count. So it would be basically counting how many levels deep you want to go. And then I could implement something that as you open the directories, it just updates. But I think that is probably not good enough because I'm gonna show there on VS Code what happens. Like the reason why I'm finding this very weird is because VS Code, I think it does take some time, but it's obviously like much faster to open. So I'm not gonna show opening the directory there. Or maybe I'll show because the name. So it's basically the documents folder. And it opens right away. So I don't understand what is going on. Like the only explanation that makes sense would be because of the, like this is something that I found interesting, is that it says symbolic link here. So I assume that there is some stuff on the documents that under the hood on the operating system is handled in a different way. So that's the reason why I thought that it could be something like that. But I think that if it was something like this, it would probably throw an error, I think, instead of continuing to run. So I think it's just basically how large the directory is. And one thing that I could do is, which I'm probably gonna test at some point, probably after today, after I stop streaming, I'm just gonna copy all the files from the documents and I'm gonna put in a different path, and then I'm just gonna select that path, and I assume it's obviously gonna be the same thing. But I guess before I do this, I'm probably gonna test different folders instead of the documents to see if it's gonna work or not. But now I'm just gonna stop here, and I'm going to go over VS Code, and I don't. Obviously, I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to. Like, depending on how hard it is to understand what VS Code is doing, I'm just gonna think about a different solution. But the thing is kind of annoying is that I might have to redo everything. Like, I was thinking about, like, probably the best thing to do, which is something that I already, like, in the first time that I saw this, I already thought that it's kind of, like, I don't know. Because like for creating another class, like it makes sense because it's more convenient, I think, and that's the reason why I also didn't want to change. And I think that for that situation, because the editor file system is always going to be used for the root of the project, Godot project, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a situation where you have like so much files that it's not going to load. But I thought that it doesn't seem very efficient because every new subdirectory, you're creating a new class and you're allocating memory on the heap. Like the first thing that I thought about is that it makes more sense. And basically the main functionality of the file system directory, which is the class that they use to hold the states of the directories, is to deal. Actually, it might have. Yeah, I think it probably has, but maybe not actually. I think the main functionality that uses is based on paths, but it might have things to do with the managing like files and stuff like that. But I thought about that you could probably just like change the algorithms and do everything based on the paths of the folders and directories. And then because on the front end, they don't do a distinction between the directories and files when it comes, because what creates the cell on the doc is the tree class. And they call subdirectory, or they call sub item or something like that. They call a function on the tree class for which is exactly the same function for both the subdirectory and the files. So I think there is no distinction when it comes to the actual cell that it draws, but maybe it does have a distinction. But I think that probably the distinction is on the metadata or something like that. But either way, I think it's possible to probably do it based on paths. The paths alone, and then don't use the other file, and basically change the algorithm and Like there must be something going on, obviously, because otherwise VS Code wouldn't be able to load the directory. So I'm just gonna close the Godot VS Code. I'm gonna start the. So I'll do something. I forgot. Yeah, whatever. So this one, I had to do some stuff to. So basically, the main problem that I had building this one was with Node GIP, which is something that I also always have a problem, and I think it's just annoying because like build systems in general are gonna be very annoying to deal with. And Node GIP, as far as I understand, is a library that is designed mainly for that. So the main purpose of Node GIP is to use Node.js to find the executables of compilers and toolchain executables to do the bridge between Python and JavaScript and also C++ and JavaScript. So usually there is problems with this, and the problem that I had was, I think, is because I didn't have Electron installed, and also because of the version of Node GIP that I have, or Node.js. So I asked ChatGPT, and then I searched a little bit as well, and then I did some commands, and it updated. So they cache, as far as I understand right now, everything on Windows is going to be cached on the app data for our applications because it's the standard path that they use. So it's going to be C users, your username, app data, and then either local or roaming, and the name of the application. So, yeah, it's somewhere along here. I think either on the npm or some other path that they have the files related to Node GIP. I think it's here. I don't remember really well, but there is a folder path that has folders with the versions of the thing that you need to build. And Electron is going to use Node GIP, I think, to build the, because Electron is probably built on C or C++, and then they use Node GIP to offer the API to the front end, which is going to be the code of the application that communicates with Electron. And the other problem that I had is you need to have a Spectre on the MS or Visual Studio installation. And the purpose of that is to prevent side channel attacks. Side channel attacks are what happens, everything that you execute leaks data because of the byproduct of the computation. So like timing tells and stuff like that. That's, but specifically the paper that they share there on the documentation is more about branch prediction. So, which is very, it's kind of, actually it's not that complicated, but like to understand the nuances and to actually implement is kind of confusing. But it's basically like you can predict the branch on the, like the hardware does branch prediction, and you can, based on the knowledge, and like, and there's some code that runs whenever there is a prediction that doesn't work, because they have to discard the, so like it predicts the branch and then starts executing before the other parts of the execution cycle are done, or there are the threads or other circuits that they're implementing instructions. And then if you have the wrong prediction, then once the other code continues to run, it's going to see that the branch that he predicted was wrong, so I should discard the code. And then there's some protocol to start to continue the execution. And they can take advantage of this by developing some stuff, some programs that are going to take advantage of the addresses that the code goes through. So this thing from Visual Studio is used to prevent this. And I think that based on what they say there, it's recommended to do this on everything that is gonna communicate with the, like you're gonna have a, like basically entry points of, which is called assets. Asset is basically everything that has an input from the outside that can, and also that has communication with the internet, because obviously that's where like you're open to exploitation. So here, I've put the breakpoints last time that I remember. The application opens, and it's gonna be kind of hard, I think, because from what I remember, I couldn't find the. I think the main thing that I have to focus on is to find the callback function that runs after the open folder is clicked, and then actually it's probably the file dialog. So you should probably search for the, I think it's abstract dialog or something like that. So they have, which is very similar to Godot, and I think it's gonna be the same in everything. They have classes that are gonna handle the what's displayed when you open the dialog, and then after you click the confirm button or OK or whatever is gonna send an event, and then there's gonna be some code that determines what happens. And that's basically the points that I have to find, because I want to understand that part. Basically trying to see what is the difference between the way that Godot does it. Oh, yeah, I think I should probably, I'm gonna look from here. So the thing that, yeah, so basically this BM file system directory is the class that they use for managing the directories on Godot. So here, like the main thing that I've seen is the path and the name that they use on the other one. Sure. And also I'm gonna look into the tree, update tree. The update tree is the one that is the entry point for creating the front end of the file system. And they basically create this, they call this create tree on the tree, and the tree they initialize on the constructor. So here they pass the roots. So the first BM file system directory that they create is the root of represents the root of the project, and then they pass to this function, and then from this it's gonna call recursively. It's gonna it's basically translating the information from the backend to the front end, which is done with these classes here. So I think that it only only uses create item, and for all the directories, subdirectories is gonna be on the first part that it recurses, and then after this part, all the files. So through the backtracking is gonna, for each level, after it backtracks, is going to continue here, and then it's gonna get the files for each level. Recursion is always very confusing because of the backtracking. I think the backtracking is the thing that makes it very hard to understand. But the way that I think about it now is whenever you have a recursive call is gonna be like on the vertical, and when you have a loop, you're going horizontally. So when you have both, you go diagonally. That's how I think about it. I think probably the main difference is the icon. But what I want to understand is how is it possible to, because obviously the folder is going to have a different level and files don't. So it must be some of these levels. But I think I'm going to focus on this later, probably. Maybe actually I have to do this now because I have to understand. Like if I'm going to be forced to change the other class and the other class maps to this one, then I have to understand if there's a distinction or how the distinction is made between the folders and files, because that's going to influence how the algorithm is going to be, which I'm not really sure if I'm gonna I think I have should like do something. Like the easiest thing possible to do is the thing that I said about the count, I think. So just limit the search, you limit the size of the directory. That's obviously not very good. The problem is that it might be very hard to, because of recursion and because it's annoying to think about these problems. It might be very annoying to do this. So this is the call that creates the file here. And it's exactly the same call. I guess it's just the levels, so that's how it's determining. So it's basically the same thing, but the reason why the directory has you can open the directory and not the files because it's creating from the subdirectory. And it never creates from the file. Yeah, so here it creates from the parent, which is the root in the beginning, then calls recursively, and then on the other one, it's gonna call from the subdirectory. So basically, whatever it passes here is gonna be the parent, and then the tree class is gonna create the layout of the files and folders. So I think it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the name and the path. So what I was thinking about is why not just get because the main thing that creates the path and the name is not the file system directory, is the dir access class. And they have these additional functions here. So what I'm concerned, obviously, is that like there must be an explanation for them to do like this. So I want to avoid, obviously, losing a bunch of time trying approaches that don't make a lot of sense. So the main thing is these files when it comes to the other functions. And the files. So the files obviously are going to be all the files for the current directory. And this is the annoying thing, is that like I might have to change all the other functions as well. Because once I change this, it's going to force me to change all the other stuff, which is not very good. So I'm gonna continue to study this thing here. I think it's abstract dialogue, whatever. Abstract dialogue. This is the service, I think, that's initialized in the beginning. So it works based on the model view controller. Pretty sure about this because I've seen the classes there. The registry view is the view, and most of the other, like I think all the view classes are gonna use registry view to create the whatever shows on the front end. Then you have the services, which is the stuff on the background, just like the backend, the server. And then you have the model, which is there are actual classes that are called model, but this connection I still don't know very well. So like how the view connects with the model, and how the model connects with the server, the services is more clear, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think that it happens at the beginning there, because in the beginning initialize all the services, and then calls a function from one of the services, and then it's gonna basically update the state of the classes. And I think at that point it's gonna probably do the connection between the services and the model classes. But the view, I still don't know. So I'm gonna put some breakpoints, some random breakpoints here, I think. There's other, I think this one is the main one because the name says abstract. And I know for sure there are other classes, but I don't remember. So maybe it's better to just press F10 or even F5. I think I'm just gonna go F5 so I go fast. And yeah, as far as I understand, Electron is based on events. So the app is gonna be the instance of Electron, and then you set callback functions. So the ready in these parts, I think the name of the events is very similar to Godot. Godot has a notification ready for the nodes, so I think it's basically the same thing. Is whenever after the initial setup, you're gonna set the callback function that you want to run, and then it starts the thing here. And then this one is gonna start another class. Oh, there's one thing that I couldn't find that I was trying to find last time. But I'm not gonna be able, I'm just gonna skip that because I'm probably not gonna be able to figure out. But the last line that it runs after the setup, which opens the application, is calling an import, I think, which has a special path that I couldn't figure out what it is. But it starts with @VS Code, and then I couldn't find where they have the rule. But I think I'm pretty sure, just based on common sense, it's probably the roots of the whatever you have the source code at. But it might be something different. Because the problem is, like, I think I couldn't find the path on the on the roots of the source code. I couldn't find the remainder of the path. And this is from the event emitter. They use the observer pattern, I think. So basically, every class is gonna either inherit from the disposable class, and this disposable class uses this emitter, I think, or they're gonna use the emitter directly, something like this. And this emitter is gonna be the thing that fires the events, which is this function here. So this is on the constructor of configuration registry. Oh, interesting. So yeah. So I wanna see. The JavaScript or the Node.js debugger is kind of different than the C++ one. I think it's also because of the way that they set up the debugger, or like the launch.json configuration. But I'm curious to see, because this was and is one of the not main points of confusion, but something that I didn't understand at the beginning and I couldn't figure out just by following the code there, is at what moment do they initialize the registry classes? What is the link? But I'm not really sure if this is, because I want to see if I can find this stack. I think this is our other. So in the launch.json, the way that it allows you to put a key. So you have the configuration key, which is the objects that you're going to put with the specifications of what do you want to execute, what do you want the debugger to execute. And then you have another key, which is called compound, which allows you to put several different configurations. Which in my understanding, what's going to happen is that it's just going to execute all of them. So they have three ones that are attached, which attach processes, and then they have one that is going to launch a process. Launching is executing the process yourself, and attaching is obviously attaching to a process that already exists. So I think that the main one that creates the VS Code application is gonna be the launch VS Code internal, which is this one, but maybe not, because this is the one that is running now. So attach main process, but it might be running both. So I don't understand very well how it works with the, because on C++, the way that it works is that you're gonna have, there are some situations where I have multiple different threads, but usually you're able to find the stack on the current thread or process. So I'm just gonna press F10 to see if I can get to the point where I have something familiar, because then next time I can put breakpoints and I can follow from before it executes everything. Oh fuck, it should have. Yeah, now I can't go back. I'm not sure if it was on this file or the not. Because, oh, so here. I should put a breakpoint here. Because this is one of the files I think that is related to the stuff that I'm trying to see. So I should probably put, it looks like it doesn't have a constructor. I should look for breakpoints, should put, also it's on the same thing here. Yeah, it's actually not this one, but it's probably related. Might be related, maybe not. Yeah, whatever. I'm probably gonna try to go maybe past a 5, because who knows how long it's gonna take to. Because all this stuff I haven't seen last time, and I think it's just because I didn't have breakpoints. But obviously, I assume that it's something that is happening. So it seems that it has to do with the asynchronous execution and promises. So I think it's some promise that is sets up on the beginning that just by stepping over, if you don't have a breakpoint, it's not gonna stop there. So this time I had the breakpoints on some of the functions, on the event probably, and then it stops there. Or this is the server class. This one I think initialized in the beginning. Remember, just because it's service, initialize a bunch of service. I think it initialized all services right in the beginning. This is one of the functions that is kind of confusing because it uses this util. I think this is a namespace. And then I have this. So I guess they were just putting on a map the services based on paths, I think. So like paths are gonna be the thing that allows them to organize between. It's another thing that I have to think about for the Godot stuff. But I don't think I'm gonna think about this now, unless I have to. Because like the problem is what happens obviously when you open a folder. The way that I have now is just caching the configuration for, like, it just caches one. It doesn't have distinction for which instance it is of the application. This is something that it's gonna be kind of hard to figure out as well, because like how do you? I think it's gonna have on Godot. It's gonna have something to do with the driver probably. Driver in the display server. The question is how do you differentiate? Yeah, I think that it only. Well, they probably have two situations. They have the workspace for organizing a cache for different projects, because of regardless of how, let's say you open a project, then you open another project, and then you open that the first project again. The way that I have right now, it's just gonna cache the last project you opened. But obviously VS Code remembers the last time that you did things, and I think that they do that with their workspace configuration. And the other obviously is when you already have the application open, and then you open a new instance. How do you know? Because in my mind, it's going to be two different processes. So I'm thinking that they do this with the server, because there is a comment there that they talk about, which is I think on the code application class, that is only one class for regardless of how many VS Code instances you have open, and it's based on this relationship between processes, I think. But I'm not really sure how, if Godot has this. I think it probably has. Yeah, it definitely has something to do with this, because you can open two instances of Godot at the same time. So there needs to be something on the backend, some server or something. Okay, so let me think about this. So I think the argument is the service ID, and then this is gonna be the. So how can I see this? Wait, it's gonna be this the type of service identifier. So the idea is the callback function. Yeah, so I guess if I put a breakpoint here, star service dependence. So the service ID is going to be the string that I passed there, which is probably the name of the name of the class. And then it returns the type. So this is the function with the type of the whatever you pass here. No, no, this is just any. So what is the point of this? So I don't understand TypeScript very well, but like obviously it's similar to the way C++ works here. And I talked about this before, that I don't like it might be a bias that I have, that I don't like TypeScript very much, because it's the first time that I like did anything related to types, and I did it on React, and like it felt very useless most of the time because the types they didn't help me, and it's just like an additional thing that it just gets in the way. But I might be biased because it was in the very beginning that I was learning everything. And it does look like it is very similar to C++ in the way that they write, but I still don't like it very much. But I think what he's doing here is just the idea is just gonna be a callback function. No, it's kind of like a lambda on C++. See the type for this. On service, yeah, so here the type is based on that, so it makes me think that the n is gonna be the template that they pass there. So whatever you use, so it's gonna be like basically this thing here. So whatever you use here is gonna be replaced here. And the callback function is just gonna be what creates the service identifier, but it's still not very, like, I'm not sure. I think that that's what makes the most sense, but I can't really um, know this for sure. This part I thought is confusing. Exactly because of this, because it's very hard to figure out what is going on here. Because it depends on the runtime variables. I'm just gonna step over. Interesting. Life cycle quits and he starts. Like I don't. I think this is just typecasting 20, but I'm not really sure what is going on. Because this is a function, so maybe it's putting this on the prototype of the function, but yeah, this is a problem. Can't really. I think I'm just gonna see if ChatGPT gives a good answer to this. I'll be right back. So does that mean that it's putting the value on the prototype? It's a function. It knows it probably knows that it's obviously it's gonna know that it's TypeScript. I'm just gonna put it like this. I wonder if that's. I know that all the functions have a prototype, which is the object inside of the function, but I'm not 100% sure. I think, yeah. I don't think that they are objects, but maybe they are. I'm gonna search this on search engine. Apparently, it is based on this article here, but it's whatever. So I'm just gonna continue step over. I have to think about how can I find the place. How can I find the place where it connects to the file dialog? I'm just gonna press F5. I'm gonna remove this because it's probably gonna go over all the time. I'm gonna press F5 and try to get to the application, and then I'm going to see if I'm gonna search for the tooltips again. The problem with the tooltips is like the nature of the events, so it's gonna be hard to find the callback function that triggers after the. I think the first thing that I have to find is what file dialog exactly is running after the event. Then after I figure this out, then then it's gonna be, I think, easier or relatively easy to figure out what function is executed after you confirm the folder. Maybe the registry, specify or a configuration registry. This one I remember. Yeah, configuration service, I'm pretty sure that it runs in the beginning. So when initialize the configuration service, this one has model classes as well. But I think that it doesn't have the actual model that I was looking at once you interact with the application. So Yeah, based on this, I assume that for sure this one is going to be related to the view. So it's the configuration class that triggers the or initialize the view registry. Configuration service. I'm going to look into this later. So I'm going to focus more on the stuff that I'm actually interested on. Just see if I can find the spots. But it's good to know that probably going to have to create another folder for this. Another text file or something. So I'm just going to press F10, try to go fast to the application. Um, Apparently I removed the breakpoints on the window. Yeah, so this is the point where, like the last line, as far as I remember, or maybe it's the next one after this, that is going to, and I couldn't find this path here. And so I don't think that is the root of the, where the source code is, because otherwise it would show here, the Windows mutex. So maybe, it doesn't have anything here either. I'm pretty sure I searched for the name as well and didn't find anything. So it must be somewhere else. Yeah, I'm not gonna focus on this though. So this part I haven't seen, as this doesn't do anything. Interesting. I'm gonna put a breakpoint here. As in the first time that I ran this, I didn't have the breakpoint on the fire event. Tracks the loading of a single module and the module jobs of its dependencies over time. So I'm just gonna press F5 real fast. I think it's probably better to try to get to the. The thing is obviously that it's hard to get to the point that I want because I never know if there's gonna be something related to the stuff that I'm trying to figure out. So this is the reason why it's kind of hard to know when to go fast and when to spend a bunch of time. But I think I have to like focus more on the stuff that I'm trying to figure out right now, just the file dialog thing. So I want to understand what happens, like the flow of execution after you open the new folder and how they are creating the files, the GUI, both the GUI and if they use something. I imagine it's going to be like the same way, like same logic from Godot, where they have some code somewhere that is responsible for managing what's going on under the hood, and then there's going to be some other code that is responsible for showing the icons. So I think I'm more interested on the under the hood stuff, obviously, because but the GUI should be interesting as well. But I think first the under the hood stuff. I think like the easiest thing I can do when it comes to the application stuff is just keep a cache every time that there is a new root directory. I think that's probably the like I compare with the but I would have to like the thing is like it wouldn't scale very well because I would have to compare with all of them. What I'm thinking about doing is on the config file, either no, I would have to load the when I'm loading the configuration, I check just I put everything on a set, I think, like all the paths, all the root paths. Then I check to see if the new root path exists on the set. Or it would have to be when it's saving the configuration. So before it saves, I would have either when it's saving or when it loads the configuration for the first time, I cache. I put but it wouldn't make sense to put the information on the class because like it's not. Like, the only purpose would be to figure out. So like I think when you're saving, I would load the configuration first and then check to see all the root folders for projects and then check to see if the current root folder already exists. And then if it exists, I update the state. If it doesn't, I put a new entry. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. But I'm not really sure. It's probably not the best, but because this kind of stuff, I think it is like better as well to just focus later. It's much more important to focus on the main thing. Is kind of boring as well to solve these kinds of problems. So like I want to prioritize the stuff that actually matters, which is gonna be the code and the visualization. So I'm just gonna do the easiest thing possible for now. Like the thing, yeah, I think that the best way to think about it is like get to the point where I'm using the stuff that I'm building, and then once I get to the points, then it's gonna become like a lot easier to figure out what actually matters because it's gonna be based on what I want to use. So I'm gonna feel the need to use the thing, and then I'm gonna realize that it doesn't exist, and I'm gonna have to build. I think that's the best way to go about it, instead of building things right now. So I'm just gonna press. I'm gonna skip all this stuff. Press F5. Just gonna get to the application because probably not gonna be able to find anything related to the stuff that I'm trying to figure out there. Like the thing is, I might not be able to figure out either by interacting because of the nature of the events. So another approach is gonna be to just look manually on the source code, like think about keywords and then see different classes that can potentially be the one that I'm thinking about, and then just put a bunch of random breakpoints and then go over again and see. Like the problem is that it's going to take a lot of time, I think. Let's see this one. So this value goes into this snapshots. Not so far. It's probably not relevant, so I'm just gonna go fast. Just gonna press, otherwise I'm gonna be stuck here. Yeah, so now I'm gonna have to remove this because it's gonna keep tracking, keep firing or stopping here. Should be kept private for an event, just subscribers. Oh, let's skip whatever. Want to just see one more time this deliver. So usually what is gonna happen is gonna call this value. So the listener is the callback, is the object that has a callback function. The value is the callback function, and then it passes this value with the event information. On file changes. So it's not the snapshot that is calling, it's just calling the callback that is subscribed there. Abstract watcher client. So I'm just gonna go over or yeah, remove this stuff. So apparently I'm gonna have to remove this. Hmm. So I think that the way that this works is very similar again to Godot. The only difference is that Godot's using the slash, they're using the dots. But I think that it's just mapping the views of the application, I think, on this ID here. So like a workbench, then registry. But it may be just mapping classes. So it's probably mapping classes. But the registry, like this class, the purpose is to register the views. So I think is using the dot to map the tree of the views, or not the tree, but the finite state machine. So I'm just gonna remove this, otherwise I'm probably gonna have to remove a bunch of breakpoints to get to the point where I can see what's going on. Oh, create content data area might be a good one to. Let's call instantiate again. I think this is gonna run every time, probably. Which is interesting to know. So I'm gonna remove. Actions, I think is like, I remember I was looking through the files that I have there on C++. Then I remember the first course or first lectures that I saw on game design, and he was talking about actions, and I think it's a common design pattern as well. So it's related to the events, I think. So I don't remember really well the design that he talks about there. Like it was the videos about entity component system. But I think after each event you create actions, and then based on these actions you determine what you run or something like this. Yeah, so it's probably what is happening here. And probably this is what runs whatever you pass here. So create instance is the first function that they call there in the initialization as well from this service. And it creates a bunch of other services. There's a function that initializes the services. But here is being used to initialize these actions, or this action. Configure workspace recommended extension action. So I'm gonna see if this class has a constructor, so I can put a breakpoint there. So my guess is that the run is gonna come from the disposable class, or maybe not, because on the example that I saw, that it is passing the other function there. Yes, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna put a breakpoint here for next time. Not sure. It's probably not worth uh, writing this down. Maybe it's whatever. So this, my guess is that this is part of the main loop. Register view welcome contents. So I think this is where it's going to initialize the main page there, the main thing. Maybe it's worth to put breakpoint here. I'm gonna put a breakpoint here for next time, but I'm just gonna skip this for now. I think I have to go faster to not get caught up on stuff that doesn't matter right now. I'm trying to be careful to see if I don't miss anything that matters. 'Cause I think it's gonna be hard to, like, I might not be able to set up breakpoints, because it's gonna be Like the obvious one would be on the fire, but then it doesn't allow me stop to put there without stopping the application. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to find the spots based on the tooltips that allow me to see what is gonna happen after I click the open folder. So I'm just gonna press F5 here, ignore all this stuff. And I think these functions are probably, not really sure why it's stopping here. They're probably parts of the loop, so they're never gonna stop. Maybe not. So long, yeah, finally. So I'm pretty sure I already did this though. That's the thing. So I have to think about how can I'm gonna look for one at a time. I wanna find the strings related to this stuff here. To see, the flush is the one that is part of the loop, most likely because of this switch here. So I wanna see what if I can find the place that is going to run after I click the open folder button there. This is web, so it's probably not stuff I'm looking for. Yeah. No folder opens. So it must be based on a variable or something. Maybe not, actually. Empty view. So it might be this class here. So I'm gonna see if there is anything. This looks interesting. Let me put one on this. So there's only, it's not a very big class. Yeah, so let me look for the other ones. Oh, obviously this one. But I'm pretty sure I already looked for this and I couldn't find anything. And the ones I found, I put a breakpoint there because I think he registers them on one of the registry views or the thing related to this there. So he registered the callback. Yeah, but maybe if I can go back there and see manually if I can find the like what is gonna happen. This is one of the classes I think that I looked last time. The log main service. So probably this one is the one that opens the or creates the dialog. So I think it's gonna use Electron, so probably not gonna be able to see the code, but it doesn't matter that much. Like the code with the functionality to create the view. So they use the Electron API. Just show open that one. Show dialog. Yeah, so this is the one yeah, so the question is how to find. So I guess the best thing to do is actually open the dialog and then search for the tooltips and labels on the dialog. Preferably the one on the OK or the after selecting the folder. But I want to see if this is the one that is going to open there. Yeah, Electron dialog show. So it's using the Electron API. And probably what is happening is that Electron is going to use a driver. It's going to communicate with the driver, and then it's going to use the GPU. The driver is going to use the GPU to draw stuff. So I don't think I'm going to be able to see it, but it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to look for. I'm going to look for some other spots. Open folder action. So this is probably related, obviously. So I think here is just this is probably going to be the thing that subscribes the key shortcuts, as the name says, there, key binding. So it's probably running this. I think that this is probably going to be the function. So it gets this accessor here. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't seen on this class, but I know that on the beginning there, it creates some weird stuff there and just like it basically uses creates this proxy to communicate with the services that initialize on the beginning. So initialize the services, then it creates this proxy, which is this accessor, and then uses the accessor as a bridge between this stuff that happens later, which I don't remember really well what it is, and the services that initialize on the beginning. So I assume what is happening is just gonna get this class here that was initialized in the beginning as a file dialog service, and then it's gonna call this from that, and this is gonna be the function that actually opens the folder. So this one I think can find. So I have to find based on the name of the class. I think I'm just gonna follow this path here. I would assume that regardless of which path you are opening the folder from, it might be different actually, but it's probably using like at some point it's going to be using the same class because obviously it doesn't make sense to create two different dialogues for the same thing. So, but it might be like the endpoint might be different codes. So I'm just gonna. Oh, there's two here. So it's probably this one, file dialog service. Yeah, big file folder and open. Big file folder. Big folder and open. So this is probably the class that is the one that's. So the service is the stuff that happens under the hood. The views are what shows up on the screen, and the models is the the data, how, yeah, it's basically the database. I think models probably related to caching. Yeah, but this might be like it might be useless for me because it might be calling Electron, and then it's not gonna allow me to understand what is going on. So it might be from Electron the code that determines how to. Yeah, but maybe like I think I should probably have, because they need to have a way to organize the files to display. So maybe through that I can understand how it works. Don't look into this one. So I'm gonna try to open there to see if it's one of these classes. So I'm gonna click the button there and see what happens. So I click the button and it stopped here. So it is that this thing that runs. So now I'm pretty sure there's gonna be open folder action and workspace action. Yeah, instantiation service is the one that creates. So it's using the same proxy from the beginning, I think. And this, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is the same. So this is initialized on the beginning. So the instantiation service is initialized in the beginning. Then from the instantiation service, it calls a function to create the other services. And somewhere along that point, uh, it creates this accessor, and then the getter is just gonna interact, or it's just gonna get the services that initialize in the beginning. So it works like a proxy. I went too fast there. Oh, so now it's going to the main call there. And it's using telemetry here. I think I have it disabled on the VS Code, but maybe this one, because I'm building from source, is different. So I'm not really sure, but it looks like it is undefined here. So maybe it's because it's disabled on the user settings. Also, yeah, this is going, so it's using a proxy here. Yeah, so it goes through the instantiation service, I think. Yeah, instantiation service. I'm gonna put oh, this is the return. Yeah, I'm gonna put a breakpoint here, so next time but I'm pretty sure that on the first time I went over this here for some time. So I'm 100% sure that it's gonna call this in the beginning. So this one creates a proxy And it's going to use the proxy to communicate with the service. Hmm. So it probably has to do with the other classes because it's using this file system schema. So I have to understand how these other classes work. But it looks like it's just getting the default, the path. So this is the function that is going to get the path that opens in the beginning there, which is the first thing that I was trying to figure out before. But I already figured out there on Godot how to do this. They have a function there on Godot that uses the operational systems APIs to, and it allows you to get the like standard paths that the OSs have. It's still interesting. Or get less active workspace roots. So obviously this is going to be the function that figures out what was the last thing that was open. So this comes from history service. I think what I'm gonna do is just translate this into a folder. No, into Excel or OpenOffice uh, Word thing to keep track of this because I'm probably gonna go over a bunch of times. I think each time is gonna become easier. It's gonna clarify each part. I think I'm probably gonna use this to clarify or like keeping in the back of my mind as I create the other stuff there because it's gonna be similar I think or like the unknowns is gonna be useful to understand how they do here. It's probably gonna return. So if there is history, it's probably gonna use this function here. Context service. But I think I'm gonna go over this now that I know the entry point. I can go manually later. Probably what I'm gonna do is just go manually later. So I'm probably gonna do this tomorrow because I'm already late and yeah. So I'm just gonna go over manually based on this breakpoint, based on these entry points, and then put breakpoints on the other classes, and then I can go over again. Because the main thing that I'm interested on now is trying to see if I can figure out what logic are they using to load all the paths. And if I can't figure out, then I'm gonna think about. I think I have to do something. I'm probably gonna implement the simplest solution possible first, which is gonna be just add a counter as an argument, and then put a condition there that if the counter hits, return. So these allow the way that I'm thinking right now is going to allow me to set up a limit for the depth of how, uh, yeah, how deep is going to go from the root, which is obviously is not going to be ideal because it's not going to show every file. But I think if I do that, it's going to allow me to see if the problem is because it is very big. It is a very, very big folder, so it looks like it broke, but it's actually the thread is just running forever because it's still scanning the directory. And I think one of the reasons why it's probably taking a long time is because it creates a new class each time. Because yeah, otherwise like it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because it is using C++, so just because of the fact that it's using C++, I think, but it might be actually the same thing because they might be using Electron, and then Electron is just the C++ compile C++, which is going to be a machine call. So I think that the API, but like it's still they have to use JavaScript or TypeScript on the front end to display the actual files. But maybe so like what I imagine it could be going on is a hack as well. But I think that it should be possible to just open all the folders and just show everything at the same time. I think that's yeah. So like on websites, for example, usually what people do is pagination, obviously, because if you load everything at once, it becomes too slow. So this is usually what happens when there's too much data. You're just gonna put a limit, and then it's like the window of interaction, and then it gives you the illusion that is loading everything, but under the hood is just dynamically loading a range from what I can perceive right now. So what I assume is if it's not loading everything, then it's using some hack like this, something along these lines. But I definitely do think that there is a difference in the way that they are creating the structure. So like, or it could be like it's either that or it's an edge case on one of the folders or like a special file or whatever. And it definitely does make me think that there's something not wrong, but that can be improved there. Like yeah, and I have to change, I think. Like there isn't an option, so I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time trying to change the class. Which is honestly not that bad because obviously it's not as hard as doing everything from scratch. But it's just annoying because of the recursion and like because there's so many things involved. It's gonna be very annoying to just test a bunch of things. So that's why I'm trying to see like if there is a way to what is the easiest possible way to do this instead of this. It's gonna be annoying to change everything. I think I'm gonna stop right now. This is yeah. So I'm gonna probably continue this tomorrow, and I'm going to look manually into the files and then see if I can put breakpoints. And I'm probably gonna do this like I'm gonna spend more time on VS Code, and I think I have to spend more time on VS Code first to understand how they do it, to see if I can understand how they organize, because I think that's gonna help me, obviously, like it's gonna help me think about solutions. The first solution that I have in my mind right now is the thing that I said in the beginning, which is the organizing things based on the paths, and then instead of creating a class, just using the dir access class to traverse all the paths, and then cache all the paths, and then based on the path, decide the logic on the front end. So you just cache all the paths. I guess I could use like a distinction of folders and files, but like keep everything on the same thing. So like I can probably create like two hash sets, for example, one for the before the files. Actually, I can do it if I put the full path, because the path is always going to be unique. Yeah, so based on the full path, I can do this. So yeah, but then what's going to be annoying about this is figuring out the logic on the front end to determine. But I guess you can do it from the path as well. Like the levels are going to be based on the slash. I think that's probably but what is like making me hesitant about this is that's like they didn't do it like this, so I assume that there's probably a reason. As the main class on Godot, they're just going to be responsible for creating the files and folders. The folders is going to be the dir access class, and the files is going to be the file access. So as far as I understand, there on the file system editor file system class, the main class that is going to be used to traverse the directory is going to be the dir access, and the other classes are just an abstraction to hold and manage the data. So I don't understand why they didn't do it with only the paths, and why they created these other classes. But yeah, so this is the first thing that if I can't figure out on VS Code, that's probably the first thing that I'm gonna try. After I put the limit there on the counter for the recursion, to see if that's the reason, because it could be something else as well. And this is kind of the annoying thing as well, is that's kind of hard to figure out. But because I tested already with another directory that has less files and it worked, I think it's very likely that it just, and also because when I put the breakpoint there, when it's already running, it stops on the breakpoint. I think it's very, very likely that this is what's happening. So it just seems that it breaks because it takes a longest time to scan everything. And that's the weird thing that I'm trying to figure out now. So probably next time, I'm just gonna continue to step over here and try to figure out how they do it. And then I'm probably gonna try to do these two things at the same time. So study how VS Code does it, and also try to implement solutions, and then go back and forth until I find something that works for the file system there. So see you next time.